Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christian Paulus. Welcome to our webinar, How to Flip a Switch for 55% Web Performance Gains. I'm going to be your host today. Again, my name is Christian Paulus. I'm running product marketing here at Cloudflare. And I'm very excited to have with me today Sander Becker. He actually joins us from South Africa. He's an industrial engineer in IT and innovation at Zaffair Operations, which is the parent company of Zaffair. Hello, Sander. How's it going?
Hello, Christian. Going well, and you?
Perfect. So today we will focus most of our time on a case study about Zaffair, and we will focus on the performance problems. A very interesting aspect here is the location in South Africa, which causes some challenges. And as part of this case study, we will do a short deep dive, technical deep dive into Argo smart routing, which is being used to address some of these challenges. And as always, we are closing off with about 15 minutes of questions and answers. And please also feel very free to add your questions during the session into the questions box you might see on your screen. And lastly, we will also be sending out a recording of the slides after the session. So with this, I would like to hand over with Sander. Sander, go ahead.
Thank you, Christian, and welcome to the listeners from Zaffair as well. Before we jump into all the technical details of the case study in Argo, I would like to give everyone a bit of background on Zaffair. Zaffair actually turned 3 yesterday on the 16th of October, and it's South Africa's first true low-cost carrier by being the first carrier to unbundle our fares with all our extras like baggage and seat selection. While only being 3 years young, we have already captured 30% of the local South African market. We're also pleased to say that we are the most on-time airline in the world as awarded by OAG. We received the award again this year for the second year in a row, and it's something we really please ourselves into. We are continuously trying to improve on all aspects of the business, and so as well our website and different capabilities. So what I would like to give you guys a bit of industry background on low-cost carriers. So the low-cost aviation industry is very competitive with high barriers of entry, and it's really hard to exit after purchasing planes and investing large amounts of money. It's usually a make it or break it case for airlines. So they continuously, even though they're not making money, they will keep on in until the last resort. Our research have also shown that price is a dominating factor when customers decide on the airline. Thus, we're innovating to keep costs low. And one of the aspects that we try is to keep our relationships directly with the customers. So in normal carriers, you would buy your fares via GDS systems or travel agents. We like to get the customers on our own website to buy directly from us. So currently, we have a website, www.flyzaffair.co.za. This is the homepage. It's our internet booking engine where we currently sell 70% of our fares, making it our primary source of income. We like to keep things light and easy. If you could see on the design, we don't like to add extra frills and fuss. It's direct, make your bookings and move forward. To achieve and continuously improve on the percentage of customers using our website, we have identified 3 key aspects to improve the conversion rate on our website. Of course, a great user experience where customers can do self-service, buy tickets, check in, multiple of features, and it should be very intuitive. The customer shouldn't struggle. Of course, reliability and uptime. We should always have a website that is always online. We keep ourselves to a 99.99 uptime and reliability score. And then, of course, speed. In today's modern world, no one really has the time to wait, and that could be the difference of selling an extra ticket or not. So on the speed factor, I would like to take you guys on our approach and phases we take to improve the speed. We follow a very continuous improvement process where we, of course, identify opportunities in the workflow using data. We plan with all our technical employees together in sprint planning on possible items. Then we execute them on a weekly basis, and then we review again with the same data tools that we have. So looking at the planning phase, the identification phase, we use 3 tools, Dayboost, Google Analytics, and New Relic. Dayboost gives us a bit of a high level on the amount of technology we use, how a web browser running our site will read and perform. We also use it to compare us against our competitors. Then with Google Analytics, we go a bit more on a medium level where we can see user behavior, page load time, geographical load times, a lot more end user detail, and it's been a really great tool for us. And then, of course, we use New Relic on a very low level on the server side to see specific processes or calls or transactions that is taking up the most time, giving errors or so forth. So combined with those 3 tools, we'll then collect data and information and set ourselves targets and trying to see gaps in our user experience and speed. That takes us to the next phases where we plan. So like I said before, we get all the developers, business owners to combine together. Then we have our sprint planning. In the sprint planning, we will also plan and devise on items that we can do, make hypotheses of improvement, and then we will discuss if it's actually possible to implement. The effort and everything will be taken into account. Then in the execution phase, we will always try and choose one speed item in a sprint. We realized if we always just keep the items to the business owners to decide, we end up always choosing nice features and never go and cleaning up the house and actually spending time to improve the speed of the website. After the implementation, we'll give some few days to pass, see on the Google Analytics reports how the behavior have changed, and we'll take those metrics again and feed it back into the process and tell ourselves, was it a great job, bad job, what were the mistakes, and we continuously learn from that. I would like to actually share an interesting item with you guys. Last year, in the beginning of the year, we followed an item. We picked up in our data analytics that we have a very high number of scrapers on our site, spamming our availability calls. It's actually one of our most heavy calls on the website. On that, we then decided to implement some scrape throttling. It was actually low effort to implement, so we gave it a chance. I was actually quite surprised we didn't do it earlier. But as you can see on the graph, our app server historical response time drastically dropped after the release. And it really improved the throughput on the site, the APDEX scores, everything else. And that was just an example of items how we continuously look at that. We also look at more holistic views to improve the website performance. In 2016, we upgraded to Amazon Web Services. We picked up that the current provider that we had was not up to the challenge, especially after we had some 1 and 2 rand sales. This equates to 22 US cents for a ticket. So our sites were completely overwhelmed, and we realized if we really want to have a great website, we will need to get great technology behind it. We also realized with the continuous improvement on data and just looking at equipment and looking at the code, it became all harder and harder to get efficiency gains. We actually started when we just started in 2015 with very high load times on certain calls. It's also just a search call that was so high. So it gives a false sense because this is data aggregated of all the different web pages. In 2016, we implemented other changes as well, tried to improve it, but then we realized we're getting more and more bottlenecks and harder to improve by just doing code changes. So we decided to look in a more holistic view of our user experience. We had a look at Google Analytics, and we also realized that the customers, even though we have 90% of our customers in South Africa, that they do have slower load times than the peers in United States, United Kingdom, and Germany. Even though they're a lot smaller sample and percentage, the amount of sessions was still enough to be a decent sample. And we realized that we need to look at the connectivity and maybe see if we can move the servers, other methods around. There's also a fact that United States, United Kingdom, and Germany have better broadband penetration in South Africa. They also have better devices on average. But we still picked up looking at the World Internet Connectivity tables, the CCOM cables on EFC network, that South Africa is actually quite constrained to connect to the United States. So currently our service was hosted in the United States. The reason for that was that Orlando, Florida is where our Radix backend or reservation system was hosted, and Amazon Web Services doesn't have a presence in South Africa or even Africa. So we had to make different decisions, and we valued it up, looked at the different options, and we decided, well, at the moment, it's still better to leave our service in the United States, even though most of our customers are in South Africa. So with that in mind, we've actually thought in a holistic view, we can't really do anything on our network speed connection. So we thought it's something we just have to live by. The worldwide internet with net neutrality and packet data being sent around, that's one part that we will just have to optimize our calls and codes to cache more in browsers and DNS servers in South Africa what we can, but the dynamic content like the fares that we need from United States, we try to improve and cut down. But with all of that into account, we were still struggling to really improve the latency of the website for the South African users. But a few months ago, around April, we received the email from Cloudflare, where we already been using for the bot traffic scraping, protection, other DDoS attacks, and everything else, and most of our DNS services. And we were quite surprised so that there were such a technology out there to really improve the traffic just for your website over the internet. And I remember sitting in the meeting discussing it with the developers and my peers, and they were like, well, what's the cost to implement it? Can we give it a try? Let's go for it. So we turned it on, and it's been great. I'll hand over to Christian to share a bit more in detail about Argo, and then we'll go into a bit more detail on our findings and the case studies and how it actually improved us with third system data and reflecting back. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, perfect, Zander. So I think you just walked us through the performance challenges you are facing. And so now I would like to look a little bit more in depth in the web-related performance issues and do a quick technical deep dive and how Argo Smart Routing can actually help here. So typically, if you're using a content delivery network, a lot of your requests will be served directly from the edge and not from the origin server. But really for dynamic content, this content always has to come from the origin. And so a request that would travel from an end user through various internet nodes to reach the origin server, and the internet would use a protocol called Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP. But in BGP, each node maintains a routing table, which then contains information of what it considers to be the best route. So even though these routing tables are adjusted frequently, the information is still fairly static. So if traffic now hits a congested network path or an unreliable connection, BGP might not discover the problem quick enough, and the network will be delayed or actually might time out. And specific to the situation in FlySafair, there might also be outages caused by issues with undersea cables. So you saw the map Zander just had showed you. And for example, on April 8th this year, an undersea cable operated by Seacom broke. And so this cable routes traffic through the Red Sea. And as a result of the cable breaking, traffic on the east coast of Africa to and from Europe was impacted until actually a repair vessel could fix the cable in the ocean. But in summary, a fast and good user experience is very important. And if the delivery of this type of information is delayed or times out, there is a direct impact on conversion rates, revenues, and the brand reputation. So the shortcomings of BGP-based internet routing can be overcome with Cloudflare Argo Smart Routing. With Cloudflare's global network, we route about 10% of all global HTTP internet traffic, and this provides Argo with real-world intelligence on the true speed of the network path. So Argo's smart routing algorithm uses this intelligence to route traffic across the fastest path available. It also maintains open, secure connections between internet nodes of the 117 Cloudflare data centers, which eliminates latency imposed by the connection setup. There are really two key capabilities of Argo which we want to discuss now, and one is around congestion avoidance, and the other one is about connection reuse. Using congestion avoidance, Argo analyzes the traffic running through the Cloudflare network to make the routing decisions, and it avoids overwhelmed or unreliable network paths, making sure that data is delivered as quickly as possible. Using connection reuse, Argo minimizes latency imposed by connection setup through persistent TCP connections. Persistent connections allow the congestion window size, that's essentially the number of bytes that can be sent at a time, to be really at a maximum, which reduces the occurrence of slow start delays. So more data can be sent faster with pre-existing connections versus trying to create new ones. In summary, again, with Argo Smart Routing, customers experience faster load times, which then ultimately leads to better user and customer experiences and higher brand satisfaction. Argo shines especially if there's a large distance to the origin or if there's a lot of dynamic content. So Zander, you have been using Argo as part of FlyZafair's business. Walk us through what's your experience.
Yes, I would like to share some information and data. From my experience, with all the complexities, I'm not actually that well aware of all the routing and magic that actually happens if your packets get sent from one side of the world to the other side. So I actually look at it as almost like traffic smart routing and GPSs, where Cloudflare routes our traffic with smart real data and send the packets through. So from all data that we mine throughout, we can confirm this as really improving the user experience on the site. If you look at the Cloudflare portal, there's actually a data that shares where you could show the amount of packets that we smart routed. It was 89.5% in the last 48 hours. We extracted this a few days ago. The milliseconds also improved drastically from 565 milliseconds to 259 milliseconds. And it was an average improvement of 54.24%. You could also see there was always one or two bumps in without Argo, or very long route times where specific cases got stuck throughout the process. You could also look at our average load times in New Relic, also improved with about a second on the network part that improved. Of course, the rendering and all the other parts that still happens on the browser side still occurs. One of the unexpected gains that we received was the impact on our reliability on the site. We also, with the website and the web server, the client, the browser needs to constantly communicate in certain interactions. And if one of the messages got dropped through the network or took too long to get through, the session would be lost and the user would start again. And we've been trying to improve this part of the site continuously with better and more light calls, but we kept on having issues, and we couldn't understand because we could never recreate it with our customers. If you try again, then the site works perfectly. So we could never really tell the developers this was the issue. But after looking at the data, we also definitely improved with Argo. So that was a really good unexpected turn. We also measure our site with an APDEX score in New Relic, where we look at how many customers are satisfied, how many has a bit of a frustrating experience and so forth, and that's also improved since Argo. So from all that, keeping all that into account, Cloudflare really did help with the new product. We were really surprised at the results. It was actually a case of let's give it a go and see if we will keep it. If it doesn't work, let's turn it off. So it really improved user experience around the world. We've also looked that it improved data for customers in Australia or even countries even further away from the United States. There was an increase in user conversions, improved web traffic and user experience scores as we looked through the data, and lost connections. Even though we only implemented Cloudflare originally for DDoS protection, DNS and firewall, this is definitely a new feature and a new aspect that they can provide us as a business. Some of the main lessons we learned out of the experience was that we do need a systematic approach where we continuously measure ourselves with data to make sure that the changes we do make actually improve the experience for the customer. Taking a more holistic system thinking from a higher level also helped us to look at gains that we normally wouldn't have looked at, like the network connection, improving hardware, different views. And I must say, if it wasn't for my superiors having a very open mind to experiment quickly and fail quickly. This could have taken months to get approved and talked about and get it going, but we actually just decided, let's experiment quickly, turn it on. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we just turn it off. So with all that in mind, I would like to give back to Christian. It's actually been a very good case study. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, perfect, Sander. I think this sounds great. I mean, for me, that was really interesting because I learned quite a lot about the situation with the undersea cables connecting South Africa, which I thought was very interesting. But as I mentioned before, we have reserved times for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, please type them into the questions box on your screen. And I see we already have a few in here, so we can go through this, but please enter your question there. So the first question I see here is, what is needed to switch on Argo? So I can take this. So no, essentially, of course, you need to be on a Cloudflare plan, but this also would include the free plan. So, but essentially, you need to set up your system, and this involves a simple change to your DNS setting, which is very easy to do. This can be done in as little as 5 minutes. And once you have gone through this, you're essentially behind or using the Cloudflare network for accelerating performance or protecting yourself against DDoS attacks or data breaches or malicious bot activity. And if you want to switch on Argo, it's really literally as simple as just flipping a switch on the Cloudflare dashboard. I mean, it really just takes a few seconds to do this. I mean, that's really all. And that also has been your experience, Sander. I mean, you mentioned before this on a slide, isn't it?
Yes, that is correct, Christian. Especially if you already implemented Cloudflare for other DNS services, we didn't even have to do the DNS setups and everything else. So we turned it on, and within minutes, we actually see the improvements in the latency, which was quite impressive. So it is literally a flip of a switch.
Yeah, perfect. I think this is great. So I mean, the next question I see here, what is the performance gain I can expect from Argo? So you have seen on the screenshot which Sander presented that FlySafare saw 55%. But this performance also fluctuates a little bit depending on the actual traffic. So sometimes it's a little bit lower, sometimes it's a little bit more. But in general, almost all customers will see a performance improvement. But again, I mean, the performance gain will differ from customer to customer. And I think in general, the more content needs to be sourced from the origin, and the further away the origin is, the higher the performance improvement will be.
I agree. I think we are a special case with the 55% of our unique situation. So that's differ from client to client. So I won't say everyone will see the gains we have, but I do think if you're a global business doing business all around the world and you don't have DNS service routing your traffic to specific service in each area, Argo is definitely a easier option than setting up service in Asia, Australia, Europe, Africa, South America, as you need to have good connectivity in every country.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting. I mean, of course, I've done a lot of performance tuning in my days as well, but typically you always focus on the bottleneck. But here it's just really easy just to tune something which is typically perceived as untunable, and it's just as simple as flipping a switch. So I think this makes it a easy choice also.
Yep.
So, the next question I have here, you mentioned, so I think that refers to you, Sander. You mentioned that you optimize code, hardware, and then the web. So what would you recommend to do actually first? I mean, I think this actually ties nicely into what we just discussed before.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. On our side, I think it depends on what was your limiting resources or what's your limiting resource in your company. It's a lot easier to quickly buy or get improved service to host your website if you have some money to burn, but time is a constraint. So it really took a lot of time of our developers to edge and scrape off time from each call and data throughout every part of it. So it depends, I would say. It depends basically on your time constraint, money constraint. But it's also quite interesting that one case that I did show earlier was that the amount of capacity that was tied up of our servers by bot traffic. So if I would say if you have limiting resources and you need to optimize it, make sure that you don't have bots just tying up your capacity. That was really for us, for the amount of effort that we had to do and get that done, that was a big win. And then you can look into the more detailed processes. So yeah, that would be so it's not a direct answer to the question. Hardware code, I would say it depends, but just make sure that you don't have servers just maintaining and giving information to bots that don't add value to your business.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. So again, if you have questions, please enter them into the question box. I think we have a few minutes more time, but one question I see here is, how much traffic does Fly software actually generate?
Yeah, so this is also quite interesting. I think with the airline industry, there's always a lot of volumes compared to different industries. But we are on average, last time I checked on Google Analytics, about 1 million user sessions a month. It is slowly increasing, so hopefully we can get a bit more. So, and it also translates to different types of requests and loads, and but it's about 1 million unique user sessions as confirmed by Google Analytics. Yep.
Yeah, I actually think, this question probably aims to kind of understand kind of how scalable this service is. Typically when customers ask it, then it's kind of always, is this just kind of for small sites or for large sites? But your site is pretty sizable, so it's kind of a reflection on that Argo works with large sites, and of course Argo leverages the Cloudflare global network, which has 10 terabits of capacity, 10 terabits per second capacity. So I think, whether it's a small site or a large site like yours, then Argo will definitely help them. And then I think we have... Yeah, go on.
No, I agree. I think small or large, we haven't... I don't think we're the biggest out there, and we haven't experienced any capacity constraints or anything like that, so would agree.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think we have time for one last question, and there's one thing here on pricing. So what's the pricing of Argo? So of course, if you're an enterprise customer, then we always apply our custom pricing approach. But for self-serve customers, essentially there is a fee based on usage. There's the monthly fee of $5 per month per zone, and then there's a usage-based fee based on consumption, so 10 cents for every gigabyte of data, and then the first 5 gigabytes are free. And so you see it's a very, very low entry cost to try this out. And I think Zander also mentioned this before, it's very easy just to flip the switch. There's no development work, there's no effort to set this up.
The consumption-based pricing was actually one of the reasons why we activated it so quickly after receiving the mail that advertised it, was that we knew that if we're not happy with the service or if it doesn't work as expected, we can turn it off. We had to turn it on for a month. We decided to actually leave it on for a full month before we're going to make a call and get a big enough sample because the internet is a bit variable. But yeah, and then after that, we were happy to stay.
Yeah, no, I think that also seems to be, I think, your recommendation. Just kind of try it out, see whether it really helps and performs, and then keep it or switch it off if it doesn't really do enough for you, But I think the analytics in the dashboard then kind of show the performance improvements, and I think that's a good thing. In general, we moved to consumption-based pricing for some of these add-ons. I think that's a great way to make features also accessible to smaller customers which previously weren't able to afford technologies like this, and essentially kind of paying for what you use. So it's kind of a fairly fair way to charge.
Yeah, I would also like to add that, I don't know, just would like to add one more bit that on our side, we've been spending so much money on developers and hosting and on top of all the different other products. To take a comparison, if you put the amount of capacity and improvement that we just got out of Argo and translate it to our hosting cost, it's actually also still a very good price competitive for the performance. So
yeah, exactly. No, it's a great product. I think this has been a really interesting case study. I mean, I certainly learned a lot, and it was great fun to work with you on this, Sander. So thank you very much for all the effort you also put into this. I think it has been a great webinar.
Thank you, Christian. Same to you.
Yeah, perfect. So I think for this I would like to close off. If you have in the audience any other questions or anything we can do for you, then please feel free to reach out to us. My email is cpaulus@cloudflare.com, and we will always be happy to help you with this. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure, and I hope you took something away from this webinar today. Bye-bye.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.